Today we're going to get into a book with a really powerful, straight-to-the-point title, I Want and I Will, by the psychologist Mihail Labkovski. It really tackles this fundamental question, why is it that so many of us feel unfulfilled, even when, on the outside, it looks like we have everything we could possibly need?
Okay, so let's just jump right into the single most important question Labkovski wants all of us to ask ourselves. Am I doing this because I want to, or because I think I have to? Just let that sit with you for a second. This one simple question is basically the key that unlocks his entire way of thinking, and man, it cuts right to the heart of why so many people feel dissatisfied today.
Because really, the whole idea of the book is that our unhappiness comes directly from how we answer that question. The problem, as Lebkovski sees it, is that we're so often living a life that's dictated by what other people want for us, what our family expects, what society tells us is success, or maybe just what we do because we're afraid of being judged. And all the while, we're ignoring what we actually want.
So here's how we're going to break it all down in this explainer. First, we'll figure out where this inner conflict even comes from. Then, we'll dive into his 5 core principles for getting your personal freedom back. We'll also see how all this stuff completely changes our love lives and self-esteem. And finally, we'll land on his definition of happiness, which is probably a lot simpler than you think. So let's get right into the diagnosis. Lebkovski says our dissatisfaction isn't just some random feeling. It has a very specific source. He calls it our inner conflict, and it's basically the reason we keep choosing unhappiness without even realizing we're doing it.
And this is the perfect way to picture that conflict. On one side, you've got your true desires, what you genuinely want for your life, your career, your relationships, and on the other side, you've got this massive weight of everyone else's expectations. It's this constant, exhausting tug-of-war happening inside of us, pretty much every single day.
So what happens when we let expectations win that tug-of-war over and over again? Well, we slowly start to lose who we are. We lose that authenticity. When you're living by someone else's rules, you can't be personally satisfied because you're not actually living your life. You're just performing a version of it for an audience.
So, where does this all even begin? Well, Lebkovski traces these patterns all the way back to childhood. If you grew up in a home where your feelings weren't really taken seriously, you probably learned pretty fast that it was just safer to be a people pleaser, to avoid conflict at all costs. And that in turn leads to low self-confidence and a huge dependence on what other people think of you. These aren't just bad habits, they're old survival tools we're still carrying around.
Okay, so that's the problem. Now for the solution. And Lebkovski doesn't just talk about the problem, he gives a very practical and honestly pretty provocative prescription. He lays out 5 core principles that are basically the foundation for a psychologically stable and, most importantly, a free life.
And here they are, all 5 of them. And when you first look at them, they seem almost too simple, right? Like, that's it? But trust me, actually living by these rules takes some serious courage. So let's break down what each one really means.
First up, do what you want. Now hold on, this isn't a free pass to be irresponsible or selfish. It's about being radically honest with yourself. It means you start making choices that actually line up with what you want, instead of constantly doing things that just leave you feeling frustrated and drained, whether that's staying in a job you hate or going to some party you feel obligated to be at.
And of course, there's the flip side, which is just as important. Don't do what you don't want. This is all about learning to draw a line in the sand. It's about building strong personal boundaries. The ability to say no without feeling guilty is, for Lebkovski, a huge part of self-respect. Because every time you say yes to something you don't want to do, you're telling yourself that someone else's needs matter more than yours.
Okay, principle number 3 takes on communication. Immediately say what bothers you. So many of us, we just swallow our frustrations, right? We bottle it up and secretly hope the other person will somehow read our minds. Lebkovski says that is a recipe for disaster. All it does is let resentment build up until it explodes later. The only way to have healthy relationships is with honest, direct communication.
Which brings us perfectly to the 4th principle. Don't answer if you're not asked. What does that mean? It means stop feeling like you have to justify yourself all the time. This quote just nails it. A confident person does not constantly seek the approval of others. That urge to explain all your choices, that's insecurity talking. A confident person just makes a decision and owns it.
And this last principle is kind of about turning the mirror around. You have to respect other people's boundaries too. Answer only the question you are asked. This is about resisting that urge we all get to give unsolicited advice or to jump in and try to fix somebody's life. You gotta let other people be responsible for their own choices, just like you are for yours.
So the big question is, what actually happens when you start living by these rules? Well, Labkovski says the impact is huge, especially in two key areas, our love lives and our self-esteem. This is where you really see how that personal freedom can completely change your relationships from the inside out.
And the connection is just so direct. When you have low self-esteem because you're constantly ignoring your own needs, you tend to subconsciously attract partners who don't respect you, which just proves your negative self-image right. But on the other hand, as you build up that self-esteem by living authentically, you naturally start attracting and choosing only stable, healthy, respectful relationships. See, it's not about finding the right person, it's about becoming the right person.
This quote really sums up his entire view on love. It's not supposed to be this constant drama or source of pain. A healthy relationship isn't a prize you win after years of struggling. It's just what happens when two psychologically healthy people get together. It's a space where you both feel respected and free to be yourselves.
And all of this leads us to the ultimate goal, right? Happiness. But one of the book's biggest points is that we've made happiness way too complicated. We're always chasing these big external goals, thinking that's the key. But Lebkovski says, nope, the real definition is so much simpler than that.
And here are the ingredients. It's not money or status or promotions. According to him, happiness is just the natural result of a life built on being authentic, having personal freedom, respecting your own boundaries, and having honest relationships. It's an internal state of being, not some prize you win out in the world.
So let's wrap up with the biggest takeaways from all of this. What should you really remember? First, real happiness starts the moment you stop living for everyone else. Second, personal boundaries are not selfish, they are absolutely essential. Third, burying your feelings is just a fast track to frustration. And finally, true, solid self-confidence. That comes from having the courage to live an authentic life.
And that leaves us with the book's big, overarching message. It's a simple idea, but a really profound one to carry with you. When we finally start living the way we want to live, not the way we think we must live, our whole world shifts. It doesn't mean life gets easy, but it does become freer, calmer, and so much more fulfilled.